Greetings everyone from the oasis that is Luxor. A few notes, a few thoughts that came to me while visiting the tombs of the Valley of the Kings, driving through the desert, and also while being at the temple of Luxor. When you drive towards what's called the Valley of the Kings, which is shaped around 64 tombs in a mountain that's shaped like a pyramid, which is why they chose it, and also because of the very soft limestone there, which allowed them to carve into the mountain easily, or well, not easily, but at least more easily than if you had a tougher, harder stone. When you drive up there now, of course, it's all made for convenience of tourists, which is a bit bizarre, but you can still sense through the intense heat, which intensifies the further you move away from the Nile. In fact, when you stand up on the mountain and you see the Nile River, what you see is utter death and heat. And all of a sudden, the beautiful and magnificent, fruitful oasis around and next to the Nile that goes by Luxor. You drive up into death, really, you could say. And once you are there, of course, you have to ignore much of what's now being, it just basically has become a mass tourist, unfortunately, site. But when you come early enough, there's almost no one there. The tombs, in their understanding of it, death begins at the entrance of the tomb. And stepping further and further down into the tombs, you're surrounded with the incredible richness of the meaning that they saw in this barren desert, and the life that was granted, but only in passing, it seems, by the Nile. I hired a private archaeologist who offered his services. Of course, I had to support him, given that he's in a similar situation as I am. His name was Ibrahim Ibi, as he called himself. And Ibi told me the following story, the origin of the origin myth in Egyptian mythology goes as follows. The earth, as far as we can say there is an earth, there's just water. It's vast, formless, dark, and there's absolutely no sound. It's complete and utter silence. And through this water, all of a sudden breaks, without making a sound, the first concrete form, which is a pyramid, which is not just a tomb, but is creation, origin, and the eye of the Ra at the peak, the highest point of the pyramid, while it enshrines death, which, however, is not just death as mere death, as pure finitude, but is also the gateway to another world that shouldn't be forgotten. So the pyramid shows itself as the first concrete form, and on the pyramid lands a duck, which lays an egg, and the duck screeches. And with this screech, all of life begins. It is in fact sound, they believed. Everything is sound, we would perhaps say today, sound waves. Now we can debate whether waves is the perfect word, really, so I just lost my notebook. So while you're driving, or while I was driving through the desert from the Red Sea towards Luxor, I gazed upon the forms of the rocks and their shapes, almost their gestalts. And you can already see the Sphinx, for example. You can see the shapes of the columns, of the Egyptian columns. And I at least thought that they didn't use stone as a material to display a certain form, but instead they brought forth from the stone what was already there. And it seems as though the land still has that mysterium within it. It still holds it, it conceals it, it harbors this mysterium still, and awaits a new people perhaps at some point that can give life to it again, as in ancient Egypt it once happened. Implicitly we could say Egypt is the beginning of beginnings, and it is so perhaps also precisely because there is this intense meeting of death, the desert, the heat of death and life, really. And when you go to the temple of Luxor, this is where I thought I saw it most clearly, because there is a part of the temple that is Roman. The Romans took Egypt in, I think, 29 BC, if I'm not mistaken, and it was Roman until the fall of Constantinople, really. And they added their own section to the temple. And you can see there was a replacement at some point. They add, I think in the 20th century at some point, early 20th century, they added Roman statues to where there were Egyptian statues before. Now, the difference between the Roman and the Egyptian forms or statues, I would think, is again, the Romans used the stone as a mere material for the geometric abstract form, so that the form finds a substratum on which to hold itself by. But the Egyptians simply not this easily, but simply see that which is in the stone and bring it forth. They give it life, and they see the logos, the gathering, the sense that lurks and awaits in the barrenness of the death of the rocks and the desert. And they brought forth from this vast void of the heat of the desert this most incredible, lasting beginning. Thank you very much.